Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I am here with a fan-based podcast endorsed by Uriah Heep, because what other band would do it? We are here today to talk about the song Shadows of Grief. That's the best Gandalf voice I could do. I told you guys the jokes were as good as it gets here, and literally that's as good as it gets. But this is a great song, and I'm excited to dig into it today. I do want to take a moment to give a shout out to my friend Dave White, who is the amazing director of social media for Uriah Heep. He takes some time to send out information to everybody about the show every time I put on an episode, which is 4 days a week. And that asks a lot of him. When he first gets up, hey, there's a show, you got to do something. But it takes some time out of his day, 4 days a week. And I really appreciate all the work that he does sharing the show. And, he's just a hell of a nice guy. So thank you, Dave, very much. And let's see. So we're here to talk about another song off of the album Look at Yourself. This one is Shadows of Grief. It's got a really interesting sound to it. As you're about to hear the vocals, especially in the earlier section of the song, as they do a bit of a long intro getting into the meat of it all. Beautiful vocal part that's set in with some really nice effects that kind of add almost like a shimmery feel to it. Like there's a whole bunch of them standing in sections singing just slightly after each other. Really cool feel to it, though, and a really good sound, a little different from what we're used to hearing when they do these, harmonies and such. But it's kind of fun, nonetheless, to change things up every once in a while. They don't seem to be too huge on the use of effects. There's a couple things that are fairly standard. Obviously, Mick's wah pedal is historic. And, there's some delays that you hear here and there. You hear here and there. But for the most part, they're fairly a straightforward band. Just a good, nice, heavy sound. When they do use effects, it's very tasteful. I love when bands can do it where it's just, a thing here and there to do to change things up a little bit, but they don't rely on effects to make them sound good. Some bands do that, and it's really a turnoff to me. Unless specifically that's, you're in a genre that's all about that. It's a really hard thing for me to listen to. I wonder what they're trying to mask in effects, because that's a very common thing to do too, is just mask something in reverb or, throw a delay on it and it'll just sound weird and kooky instead of like a mistake. And there's really none of that here. Very sparing, very tasteful. Pretty cool, I have to say. So, at this point, I think it would be a good idea to just jump into the song. So let's do it. Here is Shadows of Grief. So just like grief in real life, this is a roller coaster from a musical perspective, right? You've got this really hard pounding introduction, some really great drum fills. The toms are sounding nice again. And you've got this really nice harmony part that has just a little bit of delay and maybe a slight touch of chorus on it. And then you go into just the organ solo and it diminishes as you go into the organ. Then it drops down again on the second pass, just a little bit. You feel it's a little lighter, a little quieter, and then it's about to do whatever it's about to do. But I really like the feel of it. Here we're almost to a minute into the song, and this is another long one, guys. This is like 8 minutes and 40 seconds, according to the player I'm using. So another epic tune. And it really, I've never realized that the song was that long before. Once again, it's entertaining enough to where you don't really realize how much time has passed. Of course, with me interrupting it, it's going to take a lot longer, but that's how the show goes. Really cool stuff so far. Great way to start a song. This could have been, I would almost say this could be an album opener, except for maybe the diminishment. I don't know if that would really work as well, but definitely a powerful one that, is a real kicker so far. Now, in the first part of that section, there's something really particularly interesting to me because it's not da 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 da. It's da da. There's a delay between the first and the second strike, and it's interesting because it feels like it's off time, but it's really not. It just instead of playing the first 16th note, they're playing the second 16th note, and it's just 1/16 after where you would think that they would hit. So it has a really interesting feel to it. It sounds and kind of feels like it's off-putting, but it's really not. And then of course, we get into the cast. It's very heavy here. Then obviously with the big drum fill going into the next part, they're really building up where the song is going, and it's really cool the way that they designed that, and just strong performance on all instruments. I would normally probably put the keyboard a little bit higher in the mix during this part, but I think it actually works just filling in the background of the guitar quite nicely. I like the way that they sit together like that. So it wouldn't be a choice I would be likely to make, but certainly one I'm glad that they did. Very cool.
You're looking at me like I must be mad, but I've been through all this before. You're kicked and kicked until I'm down, so don't think you're coming past my door. Oh no. You think that love is such a pain, so the more it hurts, the more you laugh. Just take it and shake it up and down, till you think you've had enough, but you won't get enough of my love.
This is such a great rocker. I really love the dynamics here. Very powerful and passionate vocal from David. But what's interesting here too is that, I was saying earlier that I thought that the guitar and the keyboard sat very nice in the mix together, even though the guitar is very dominant. What's interesting about that is that the guitar is playing the steps as it rises into that section where it would be going into a chorus. But the keyboards are actually doing all the dynamics, and they're in the background, which is pretty interesting. I can't think of any other examples off the top of my head where that's been done. So it certainly stands out to me in this song, but I love the way it sounds. Like I said, normally I'd be putting the keyboards up and capturing what they're doing a little more, but I think this actually works. It's not something I would have expected. So it's a real pleasant surprise for me. There's something particularly interesting about this section to me, and as Ken plays his part, and I should digress. If this is the first episode that you're listening to, and maybe you're not familiar with Uriah Heep, Ken Hensley is playing keyboards, Mick Box is playing guitar here. And if you listen to what Ken is playing on the Hammond, as it goes down in the scale, Mick is following very nicely. But when it goes up, Mick changes and plays something completely different, which I absolutely love. It's a really nice and unexpected change. And this is the kind of genius that goes behind the writing of Uriah Heep, and why I think that they're such an underrated band, because this stuff just, I've never read things about, hey, they tried this, they did that. I just don't hear about stuff. So it's really cool to hear, and I'm glad they did it. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that last section back again so that you can hear it, and pay attention to, how Mick is following Ken when it starts going back up the scale. It's really fascinating. I don't know. What do you guys think? Did you find that as cool as I did? I think that's just excellent. Very, very great idea. And, sometimes you just have to go and do something different. If you're just doing what's expected all the time, then music isn't as exciting as it could be. And I think this is a perfect spot where you have an opportunity to do something that really throws it and just go for it. And he went for it, and it sounds great. Let's see what happens next. A lot going on there, that's for sure. So much progressive rock in that section, right? A lot of stops and starts and hits. Everybody just very much in sync together. Paul really cutting through with the bass in some of those parts. Really sounds good, a great blend. The only thing I didn't like about it was that when the keyboard was kind of taking the lead with the dynamics, the guitar, again, I think was a little bit too loud overriding that. And in this case, I think it didn't really balance well, because you've got the guitar doing that first, and that really stands out. But when the keyboard does it, the guitar's kind of squashing it back a little bit. So I think at least for that one section, I probably would have brought the guitar down a little bit and the keyboard up a little bit, and found a little bit different of a balance. Again, just my engineer ear. The thing is that there's no standardization to the way music is mixed. Everybody mixes it to where they think it sounds the best. And, back then you really only had to mix it for LP. There were probably 8-track versions, I would imagine, that came out. I don't think cassettes were out yet, but in that case, you really only had to mix for one medium, and it was probably going to be played on a stereo, like the old component stereos. And nowadays you have to mix for different medias. So you have to mix and master really for different medias. And then there's you go through all the trouble, and people are just going to listen to it on earbuds they got from the 99-cent store. But in this case, I'm listening through my studio that I use to record my own music in, that I mix everything in. And I'm listening through a nice pair of studio headphones. So I'm hearing a lot of the dynamics in a lot of the parts that I haven't heard before, which I really like. But this is just a really good driving section of the song. For the most part, like I said, other than that one little part, I think it's mixed very well. I love the way the drums are sounding here. Nice and rich and full, and you're really getting the depth of the tonality of the drums. You're getting the full body of the drum itself, and not just really the hit on the head. And it sounds really good here. And with the drive-in bass and the keyboards carrying the rhythm a little bit, it just drives and has such a great blend to it. So, being that this is an 8.5-minute song, we're almost at the 4-minute mark. And so far, this is what I mean. It goes so fast. Even when I look at the time and see where we're at in the song, I'm like, we can't be that far in already. It doesn't feel like I've been listening that long. But that's just the beauty of writing great music. It's like the song Salisbury. It doesn't feel like it's, a 16-minute plus song. It's just there, and it's so engaging that you don't really realize how much time has passed. And I think that is just a sign of great writing and great performance. I think this is one of those points where I really wish that I had been a fly on the wall during the writing session of that. How do you decide how that's going to go, when you're going to go up, how high, what each person is going to sing through that? It just sounds absolutely glorious. I love the amount of reverb that's put on that. It's not so much that it's swimming in it, but it's enough to have an impact and make the overall sound feel a bit wider and deeper to that vocal section. Really great, strong keyboard sound holding that back. It's distorted, but it's not real heavy. Just enough to thicken up everything in the background and give the harmony section a nice boat to float in, if you would. Really, really cool. I love the tonality here, and it's just a very powerful section. In the beginning of that section, you heard a little bit of it wasn't quite a voice. It was sort of an airy sound, though, that was a little bit haunting. Really like that, especially heading into this part, because this is kind of, the vocal section here is kind of a little bit creepy. It's a little bit, I'm going to get you kind of feel to it, to me. And I really like that. I really like the fact that I feel, a little, like I imagine laying in bed just staring up at the ceiling, not being able to sleep, and hearing that voice or those voices in my head, and it really just, getting me to the point where, I might be shaking or just afraid, or the feel of danger around me. Not sure if that was the intent of that section or the song at all, but that's certainly what I get out of it. Really cool, though. It's very powerful how something that's it's a little bit complex, but the overall idea of it is pretty simple, but yet it comes off so powerful. And, the wrong touch of reverb could have killed it, but they mixed that part perfectly. Great level of effects. Really cool and powerful. What a powerful way to end that section. And you hear that little, ethereal sound coming by. It might be sort of a whisper, but it certainly has an impact. And then just that huge scream, absolutely beautiful. God, David's voice just sounds so amazing here. And it's not like we haven't heard him do something like that before. It's just so powerful in that section where the space is really carved out for him to just punch it and make it sound incredible. And he certainly came through. Real nice, gentle keyboard background there until it's time to kick it in. And then it just comes right back in out of nowhere, just full force. And that, my friends, is rock and roll.
If you want to carry on in the same old way, treating everyone like a piece of dirt, just take it and break it and throw it away. There won't be anyone left to hurt.
That's a nice little change there. I really like that, how it just goes up in register. But I wanted to stop it here because I wanted to talk about how powerful the sound is right here. I mean, Look at Yourself sounded heavy, but this to me, and I'm not doing a side-by-side comparison, but this to me sounds much heavier. I love the sound of this. I love how thick and deep the guitars sound. I love the way that everything's blended with the keyboard, the bass, and the guitars. The drums give it a good pound too, but it's mixed so great. But what really works here is the fact that everybody's playing so tightly together. You're not hearing any separation from the instruments. Just the slightest, but nothing that your ear's really going to pick up on. And it just sounds so thick because of that. If Paul and Mick weren't playing together, the bass wouldn't thicken up the guitar as much. Same with Ken, but it really, really just sounds like a great blend here. But it really comes down to the performance is what I'm trying to say. The performance really is tight, and it allows for that sound to really push through without separating at all because of the timing of everyone here playing together. So really wanted to point that out because we talked about that in Gypsy, how it was great that it sounded human and wasn't exactly on point, that everybody was playing 100% together. But by this point, you can tell that they're a pretty tight unit. And I think that if this were performed with less, with more errors and less precision, this would not sound as powerful as it does. But they are on point here, and that really strengthens the sound.
North, south, east, and west. Wherever you go, you'll find the same. And the only way you'll ever learn, just realize that you're to blame.
Okay, that got a little bit weird for me. Going back to the beginning of this section where I started playing from that last verse, really heavy reverb on the word north. Not sure why that was done versus the other directions, but for some reason there was an emphasis on that. Really powerful though, like they really took it up another notch for the last verse, what they were doing musically behind that. The vocals have been just strung through the whole thing. They haven't really diminished, and at least as far as the verses go. And then, then it all stops and we just hear the organ again. And I noticed this before and I forgot to mention it, but it's like every time it does that, I think that it's like a live version and we're about to go into the 15-minute keyboard solo. And it doesn't, of course, because this is the studio version and this is the song. But every time like this heavy stuff is going on, then it just drops out and it's just the organ. It has that kind of feel to me. And so it's really weird that they did that so many times in this song. This last section is really interesting. It's like grief's last chance to get a hold of you. And I'm definitely convinced now that sound that we were hearing was actually a voice, like a breathy voice. And that really adds a nice layer too, because it really feels like grief as an entity, almost like a ghost that's haunting you or a poltergeist or something. It has a really, really ominous nature to it. And I love that. But of course, those vocal parts, you just can't beat that. I would say that last one was a little bit dry. The last couple were a little bit dry as far as the reverb goes. I think they backed off a little much there. But I love that. I love how there were two distinctive voices doing that at different times in the last section. So really cool stuff. And just a really weird ending, though. I'm not sure how I feel about it. It just kind of trailed off and then came back to end it. It was a little strange. And then you have the first hint of a clean guitar that I've noticed through this entire piece. So that kind of came out of nowhere, but definitely interesting. I mean, it's good to have changes and it's good to have things that you don't expect, which this certainly did. But I almost feel like it's musically the story of what's happening to this person is that they're being tormented by grief. And in the shadows, they hear these sounds and these voices, and it's kind of driving them crazy. But in the end, they find that peace. We all get past grief to the majority of the extent that we could. When we lose something that means something to us, it's never 100% that you're not going to feel moments of grief. I just had a friend who passed away a few years ago, and it was her birthday, and it came up on my Facebook, and it hits you all over again that, oh, it's so-and-so, I should reach out. Oh, yeah. And it just hits you in that moment all over again. So I don't think grief is a thing that ever goes away 100%. But I think musically, what I get out of this is that this character, this person has hit that point where they're past the shock of whatever it is that they're sad about. They're past the, I don't want to get off of the chair feeling, and they're finding some peace. They've gotten themselves a shower and cleaned up a little bit, and they're just kind of looking out the window and seeing, what the sun does come up after tragedy. And that's what I get out of it. But I tend to, as we all know, if you guys have been listening to the show for a while, you guys know that my mind just goes where it goes, and I probably shouldn't be unsupervised. But that's what I get out of it. And I think that's actually pretty cool. I like the fact that we hadn't heard the clean guitar before, because it adds a level of new fresh feelings, the beginning of a new day, the finality of the thing we're coming out in the transition. And I really like that choice there. And I think that I feel like there's going to be no more voices, no more haunting or taunting or whatever it is. I feel at peace at the end of this song, whereas throughout the song, you feel pretty tormented. It's just this hard driving, thing with these little creepy voices in there. And then in the end, you get your finality. So I really like the ending of it. It seems weird if you just hear it and you don't really think about it too much. It's like, wow, why did that happen? Why did it go there? But if you, at least for me anyway, and these are just my opinions and my feelings as I'm hearing these songs, what is occurring to me in the moment, because I've been listening to Uriah Heep for the majority of my life. I'm creeping up on 50 now, and I've never really sat down and actually listened to all the nuances of their music. And I love getting the chance to do that now and sharing it with you. But I don't notice, I don't think I ever thought more about the ending of this song than just, oh, that's what they chose to do. And it's fine. And now this song is done and we'll go into the next song. I don't think I've ever really put much thought into it before. I've just been floating on the water of the enjoyment of the song. And, whether the song's sad or happy, it just enjoying the music, enjoying the performances and not really analyzing it. And now that I'm really breaking it down, really digging into it and hearing those things and hearing the dynamics and understanding some of their choices, I really think this ending is fantastic. I've just never put the thought into it before, but it really is. It's just that, the calm after the storm is over, as you're watching the storm clouds that have done their thing and they're dissipating and they're going away from you. You've been through the storm now. You're sitting there soaking wet on the front lawn. And now it's time to get a towel and let that sun that's starting to cut through the clouds just warm you and warm your bones. And that's the feeling I get from the end of this. So anyway, long description, I suppose. But very cool, very warm ending. I really like it. Great job, guys. And that is this song. So we made it through an almost 9-minute song once again. And I really thank you guys for joining me. I see I've kept the episode to, just a little over a half an hour. So no need to break it into multiple parts. We might have to do that when we get to Magician's Birthday. We'll see. But great song. Really enjoyed it. It was great to hear it again. It's been a while. And I hope that you guys enjoyed it too. So we will be back for the next episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!